So now we're going to add our internal facing panel to our main lining panel. Now, I've added my Decaville on the back, and the Decaville should be central so that there's a gap at the top and the bottom. I always add Decaville usually the day before because it gives it a chance to set and just lay it flat. If you fold it up once it's done, if you put it on and then fold it up like that, when you get up the next day, it's all curly. So put your Decaville on, fuse it on and lay it flat. I haven't got any woven interfacing because I'm using a faux leather for my internal facing to match the base of my bag. So I'm going to take my facing panel and I'm going to lay it right sides together along the top edge of my lining. And I'm just going to clip it in place. If you've cut accurately, it should fit perfectly. That does, which is really good because otherwise it makes me look like I'm a bit slapdash. And then we're going to stitch along the top edge to join those two pieces together using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So you shouldn't be stitching over the Decaville. The Decaville should be out of your seam allowance. If you were using fabric for this panel, then you would need to interface it with a woven fuse while interfacing and add the Decaville over the top. If you were using something like waxed canvas, I would position the Decaville and then I would stitch down both sides to hold it in place because you couldn't press it in place. So you could stitch it in place. The other thing that you can use instead of Decaville, if you haven't got any, is the plastic stuff from Bags for Life. So the bags that you buy at your Sainsbury's or your supermarket, IKEA, any of those places, they're made of really tough plastic. Obviously this isn't fusible, but you could cut a panel and you can franken fuse the panels and use a spray adhesive to put it on. It's just something to strengthen that top bit where those grommets are, but that isn't too thick. So this would just give strength, but so it would be where the grommets are. If you're using really thick fabrics, then you could actually, rather than adding one long piece of Decaville, you could add sort of rectangle circles where the grommets go. You would need to move to the next stage to work out exactly where the grommets go, because you'll need to use the measurements and adhere your Decaville or whatever you're using in the appropriate places. It's again a personal preference. If you think that it's going to be just too bulky because you're using a very thick fabric for your exterior and a very thick fabric for your facing, then you have to sort of amend accordingly. As I say, there is quite a lot of having to use your previous experience to guess, to kind of figure out whether you want your bag stiff or not stiff. And because we're using such different fabrics rather than your standard quilting cotton, which I can kind of give you, I can tell you what to use if you were using quilting cotton, but this isn't the sort of bag that I think works well for quilting cotton. So it needs something a bit more oomph to it. So that's stitched in place, and now I'm going to fold that out and I'm going to push the seam allowance down towards the lining. Now, if you've got a fabric that you can press, then it's worth pressing at this point. If it's not something you can press, and I can't because I've got faux leather here, then just finger press it. And you're going to top stitch along just below this facing panel. So you're on the lining panel, and that will hold your seam allowances down towards the lining rather than up towards the facing. So I'm just going to push my finger underneath this to make sure that that seam allowance is orientated the right way. And I'm stitching at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. you could stitch at 1/4 inch if you felt that was if you felt more comfortable with a 1/4 inch. I know not everybody likes an 1/8 inch. Any more than that and you won't actually catch the seam allowance, so it's kind of a pointless exercise. So So there we can see that that's a line of stitching just below that facing panel, and you can see that that's holding the seam allowance facing down towards the lining. So we're going to now look at shaping our lining panel. So I have my lining panel. It's difficult to see because I can't get it all in shot, but my facing is on the top, my pockets are over here. So this is my bottom corner. This is my bottom right hand corner, and I'm just going to make a small mark that is 1/4 inch in from one side, from the side. So and then I'm going to trim off, and I'm going to trim off between that 1/4 inch mark and this point here where the lining meets the facing. So I'm going to take a long ruler. I'm using my rotary cutter. Always use your rotary cutter away from your body, and just slice off that little extra piece. And you can do exactly the same on the other side. And that just allows just a little bit of tape because your lining base is smaller than your lining exterior. So we're going to just take that in, and then we'll carry on with constructing our lining.